The next hour will be dedicated to the Wisdom Dialogue session. Today, we are truly honored to have invited two distinguished guests to join us in exploring this topic together. Let me briefly introduce our two guests to everyone. The first guest is Khenpo Sodargye Rinpoche. He's a well-known Buddhist scholar, highly regarded for his deep knowledge of Buddhist teachings and philosophy. And he is also a respected religious leader. He is also a translator, writer, and philanthropist. He is a genuine protector of the lineage of Great His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, a genuine protector of the Nyingma tradition and the Dzogchen teachings. In 2014, Khenpo Sodargye was recognized by Figure magazine as China's religious face of the year. The second guest is Professor Panzong Kwang. He has been nominated twice for the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. He is a highly accomplished and distinguished scientist, and his works, the Heart Sutra and the Wisdom of Life, and Buddhism and Life, the Heart Sutra and Modern Management, and the Lesson of Gratitude, as well as a series of works such as Buddhism and Science. From the view of a scientist and educator, inspired many Chinese, especially young and middle-aged intellectuals, to pay attention to the wisdom of Buddhism. Friends, let us warmly welcome both of our guests with a round of applause. I believe this segment and moment is what everyone has been anticipating. Today, Buddhism and science are once again joining hands. So, let's hear the opinions and perspectives of our two guests. First, the initial question is this. I've heard a saying like this before. Science without religion is like a blind person, and religion without science is like a lame person. In other words, if either one is simply missing the other, neither is complete. I'm really curious to know how both of you view this issue. Professor Pan?
These two notable statements were made by Einstein. He said that science and religion, these two significant and complex domains of human thought and experience. Science, in essence, is about what things are essentially. Religion, at its heart, is about what things truly ought to be. Science fundamentally relies on theory and experiment to verify laws governing the changes of things in time and space, whereas religion advocates how people should live their lives by providing moral and spiritual guidance, setting forth principles, a moral direction that guides our actions. On the surface, it seems the two are unrelated, but that's actually not the case. For example, if we look at the Buddhism as a religion, we know that Buddhism was founded by the Buddha, our teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. He realized the ultimate truth of the entire universe. He understood a natural law exists in the universe, the law of cause and effect. We should know that it is important to recognize that this natural law is very significant. It is also fair, impartial, and compassionate. People's afflictions often come from constantly doing things against the natural law. For example, nowadays we talk about air pollution, which is resulted from producing excessive carbon dioxide and engaging in deforestation. Environmental protection means returning to nature. When we return to nature, there are no afflictions. So the main focus of Buddhist thought is a scientific understanding of the laws of the entire universe. At the same time, it educates us on how to be good and how to practice. Religion teaches mind-body cultivation, return to nature. We find peace and ease in body and mind. Therefore, Buddhism is in many ways a unique and harmonious fusion of science and religion. Without science, there would be no development of Buddhism as a whole. Without practice, there can be no complete results.
So the relationship between the two is mutually supportive. Khenpo Rinpoche, what is your view on this?
Speaking from my own perspective, I believe that Buddhism, as well as any other religion, should be considered thoughtfully and with an open mind. Requires careful, thorough, objective, rational observation and wisdom. Without these, it would be just like being completely blind. It would be extremely challenging that the value of Buddhism be reflected in the human society. Therefore, in essence, any religion needs this kind of careful, thorough, and detailed scientific observation and must be able to withstand scientific scrutiny. If it cannot withstand that, it can't stand up to real-world theories, then that religion may not develop quite well, as it could have difficulty in attracting new followers or maintaining influence over a long time. Any science, in fact, also needs the concepts and wisdom found in religion, because if science lacks a genuine and unwavering attitude of peace and deep compassion toward humanity, then truly, or a profound and unwavering sense of responsibility and stewardship for all life in the world, then it is very possible that such science could bring harm to humanity. Just like some of the things we actually see today, including atomic bombs. If these fall into the hands of those without conscience, those people without compassion, then the whole world faces a dangerous situation. So we believe that in Buddhism, wisdom and compassion are truly emphasized as core values. In fact, as for compassion, scientists also need compassion in their work. Otherwise, it can be very dangerous. As for wisdom, religions also need wisdom. If there is little wisdom, then that religion is merely a belief, and it may turn into superstition over time.
Religion requires wisdom, and science also needs to be guided by compassion. In this way, we can reach a higher state. Can we understand it this way? In other words, that Buddhism is a science of the mind. Is it correct to think of it like this?
I think Buddhism can indeed be considered a science of the mind because it carefully examines the nature of consciousness. But in fact, actually, in Buddhism, as stated in the Heart Sutra, no eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, or mind, no form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or phenomena. In the ultimate level, all six senses or all phenomena perceived by the five senses don't exist. At that point, even what we call the mind has already been transcended. Therefore, to a certain extent, it can be said that Buddhism is a science that objectively observes material phenomena as they appear in the world around us. But perhaps science can at most reach the fifth and sixth consciousnesses. Regarding the seventh or even eighth consciousnesses, so far, the scientific methods of observation may encounter certain difficulties. So, as we say, everyone has a kind of supernatural and transcendent discovery. But this discovery may need to be realized in practice through religion.
So does that mean in this process, because each person is different, will the amount of time he actually needs be different, or will it stay the same?
Well, yes, of course, certainly.
Professor Pan, what is your view on this?
I think the scope of Buddhist studies is extremely broad, including aspects of the mind and spirit. So we hope, through the law of cause and effect, to understand and further perfect our minds. The mind works like this. Now, modern science is delving deeper and more thoroughly into the study of the mind. And from the perspective of quantum mechanics, as we know, everyone's ideology regarding this topic can interfere with the environment around us and affect our world. It truly does have an impact. So nowadays, people say consciousness is unquestionably the most fundamental element of our cognition and understanding. Our consciousness is the key element that influences our understanding. So through spiritual practice, we hope to cultivate a consciousness that is more pure and at ease, so that we can achieve the most perfect spiritual cultivation. For example, many scientists also, in fact, believe that religious spirituality is one of the most important elements influencing them. Einstein said that his scientific research was, in large part, primarily and deeply driven by his profound religious feelings and beliefs. Long as he had religious sentiment, every scientific achievement he made, indeed, if it resonated with his inner self and spirit, would cause a great stir in his soul, filling him with a profound sense of unease and emotional turmoil, and also bring about much inner peace and ease. So the mind is truly a very important element. We need to understand it deeply And this cannot be separated from our ideology. And our ideology is the most important factor shaping our cognition. All interconnected.
Is this a resonance?
Yes, it is.